Discipline is something that is very difficult and very painful, whether we as kids we were in the receiving end of it, or whether now as dads, as moms, as parents, we are on the other end of administering discipline. Discipline can be a very painful thing. And it can be a very painful thing when we don't do it purposefully. And so we find in Psalm 23, the psalmist went on to say that when I'm walking through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear evil because Jesus is with me, my shepherd is with me, and your rod and your staff, they comfort me. While the rod was used to defend and protect the sheep from wild animal attacks, the staff was something that was used to direct the sheep, to correct the sheep. When there were wandering sheep, with the staff, the shepherd would nudge the sheep and get them into the right direction. And that's one of the responsibilities that we have as dads, is to be the one that lovingly disciplines our kids. And that is the key. It's not just disciplining our kids, but disciplining our kids in a loving manner, in a manner that helps them to understand that even when we are correcting them, even when we are disciplining or punishing them, that we are doing it for their well-being, and we are doing it because we love them. See, when discipline is not done lovingly, discipline becomes something that is just painful. But when you discipline your kids, or discipline our kids lovingly, what happens is discipline doesn't just become something that is painful, but as time goes on, as the kids grow up, they recognize that discipline was more purposeful than painful. And when we are disciplining, we got to make sure that we are not disciplining out of anger, we're not disciplining out of agitation, because then sometimes we can be too rough on our kids. And so in the same time, we need to understand how we discipline from child to child is very different. I have two boys with two entire different personalities and characteristics, and how I would discipline the two of them would be very different one from the other. Now, when it came to Ethan, the older boy, I don't do this anymore because he's 18 years old, but he yet does get disciplined and grounded. When he was a kid, on and off, he would have got on one side or both sides on the seat of education, he would have got smacked, and that worked for him. But with my younger son Jason, who can tolerate, who has a high tolerance of taking pain, giving him a smack on the seat of his education did not make a difference. But if you were to tell him, you know what, okay, if you do not follow instructions, and if you are not going to do the right thing, then you're going to lose these privileges. It could be watching TV for a couple of days, or something that he likes to do. That really worked. And so even as we are disciplining our kids lovingly, we need to understand that from child to child, your approach to discipline may vary, but we got to discipline, and we got to do it in a loving manner. And also disciplining our kids in a way that empowers them is also very, very vital and important. Oftentimes, I would tell my boys that, all right, you have two choices, and I want you to make the choice. And I would tell them, okay, if you would choose the choice, if you should decide and choose to do this thing, then the outcome of this thing would be this. But if you would choose to do this, the outcome would be this. And one choice would always have a very negative outcome, would have a consequence, whereas one choice would have a very godly, impactful, positive, God-honoring outcome, where, the outcome of it also would be something that is good for them, and something that honors and glorifies God and instills values in them. And so instead of sometimes telling them exactly what to do, we can even use discipline to empower them, as God does in our own life. You see, God has given us a choice. He said, if you obey me, the outcome is blessing. If you disobey me, you bring about a curse. You bring about consequences in your life. But obedience brings correction. Obedience brings comfort and courage and so many great things. And so even God has given us instructions, the do's and the don'ts, and He has also clearly told us what the outcomes are. And what He does is that even when He disciplines us, He disciplines us out of love. As the Proverbs would say and Hebrews would say, it says, God disciplines those whom He loves. Now, this is so important because sometimes, as parents, when kids do certain things that are wrong at a very small age, we tend to laugh about things. We tend to make a joke of it, and then kids are watching how when they're doing something mischievous, something wrong that can have long-term effects. They think, my kids think it, my parents think it's funny, so I can keep doing it. And parents, we gotta watch out for that, because if we really love our children, we would discipline our children, because the Bible says God disciplines His children whom He loves. God disciplines those whom He loves. And when you really love your children and kids, we do not go without disciplining our kids when they do something wrong or they're headed in the wrong direction, because a part of being a parent and a dad is learning to discipline our kids. And also, set parameters, set boundaries, because children want to see how much they can push the boundaries. So, it's so important that they understand when we have set boundaries and parameters on certain things, that they can't push and try to move it inch by inch, but that, you need to very lovingly, very graciously stand your ground, and when it's needed, discipline your kids lovingly for their own good. Remember, when we discipline kids lovingly, it no longer just becomes something painful, but it becomes something that is purposeful, that ends up in people praising them. But above all else, as we instill the right values in our children, even through discipline, where people end up praising and glorifying our Father in heaven. So dads, may God give us the wisdom to discipline our kids from child to child, and may God give you the grace and the strength and the wisdom. God bless you. We will be praying for you.